This episode is brought to you by HASA. Liquid is clearly better. Liquid chlorine is the highest purity, works immediately, has no added cyanuric acid or calcium, and it will leave your pool safe, clean, and clear. And by the Bottom Feeder professional grade battery powered vacuum system. It sucks to clean pools, so cleaning pools sucks less. Get $100 off with code DVB100.
This episode is brought to you by Skimmer, the #1 pool service software in North America. With Skimmer, you can streamline your schedule, grow your revenue, and keep your customers coming back with 5-star service. Whether you're a one-person operation or an established team, Skimmer is your partner in success. Visit getskimmer.com/poolguy to try Skimmer for free for 30 days.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.
Hi, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to go over ways to talk to your clients correctly. I'll give you some tips. I'll give you some really clear advice and things to avoid doing. So I think you're going to really benefit from this and learn to talk more professionally with the clients on your pool route. Are you a pool service pro looking to take your business to the next level? Join the Pool Guy Coaching Program. Get expert advice, business tips, exclusive content, and get direct support from me. I'm a 35-year veteran in the industry. Whether you're starting out or scaling up, I've got the tools to help you succeed. Learn more at swimmingpoollearning.com. And if you listen to this show for a while, you know that one of my pet peeves is profanity. I think that it's very unprofessional. It shouldn't be used in any kind of setting, period. And you shouldn't be using it in front of your clients. And I still remember this till this day. This started with me, at least, in 9th grade, and I wasn't a religious person. I wasn't even a Christian, but the professor, he was actually my biology teacher in 9th grade, Mr. Russell, and he basically said that using profanity shows that you're not intelligent. And I was like, what is he talking about? And he said that it's an easy way to express yourself when you throw a profanity out there and you're not using any kind of thought behind it, and you're not really expressing your feelings. You're just saying something profane to fill the air with because you can't think of anything to say. And I think when I started unpacking that as a teenager, basically, I realized that he was correct. I mean, when you use a profanity to fill up the space, you could say something instead that's more impactful, maybe how you feel. But instead you just say that, it becomes a habit. And so ever since then, I stopped using it because it was really impactful for me, what he said. And it does show a lack of respect. That's something else he mentioned. But the part that I caught was, besides the lack of respect, was the fact that it shows that you're not able to express yourself using real words and express yourself in a way that shows that you're an intelligent person. And it does become a habit, and so it's habit forming, and you just start using it, and you're filling up the air with it, and it's not something that you would want to do in a professional setting. I don't like it when people use it. In fact, I gave this example of someone who's starting their garage repair business. He came over to kind of oil my garage for me, and he was just, it was really bad. He was just, every other word was a profanity, and I was like, well, I can never recommend him to anyone I know. Number two, I don't really like the way he's talking now, and if I refer him to somebody and he's talking like this, they're going to be like, hey, why did you send this guy over? He's a potty mouth or whatever. So that just was not effective, and his business may not go far, because if people are like me and they don't want to refer him to friends or neighbors because how he talks, then he's not going to be successful. So that's just one example, a real life example that happened to me, and I would never use someone to do that. I mean, to do any kind of business with that kind of language that he was using. And that's something that you have to realize, that a lot of people are sensitive to that. Some people may not be, but you want to kind of be all-inclusive in your business and be aware of those sensitivities. Another thing that I think is really important, and this is something that I do here on the podcast, is that you want to be as neutral as possible politically. So if you have stickers on your truck, I don't know. I mean, that's up to you if you want to do that. I just don't think that if you are an all-inclusive type business, you should be political in any way. You have your politics and I have mine, and I understand, the opposing arguments and I understand my arguments, but to advertise it in business doesn't make a lot of sense in my opinion, because you're going to alienate half your clients basically if you look at how everything is divided on the map or in your area. Maybe in some areas it's not going to be half, maybe just 30% or 20%, but any percentage is a problem, because if you know anything about referrals in business, one client can get you 100 clients, and that one client may not be inclined in your politics, and they don't call you for your business, and therefore you lose 100 different connections because of it. So it's really important to realize that you could lose a golden customer based on taking a political stand, which in business I don't think is absolutely necessary, especially pool service, and is something that you should consider if you want to capture and be all-inclusive. And that's something that's really important in business as well, is that, of course, there's laws about discrimination. If you have rental property like myself, there's a huge amount of things you can say in a listing of a rental. In fact, I think it's a great baseline for business itself. I'm sure a lot of businesses and corporations have these guidelines as well, but here are the things that you can't put in a rental listing, and here are things that you probably don't want to use in your business practices as any kind of form of discrimination. So race and ethnicity, color, national origin, religion, sex, gender, any disability, familial status. This is an important one. So if they have kids or don't have kids, you can't actually put in a listing saying, oh, this is perfect for a couple with no kids. That's against the law in California and probably a lot of states as well. Of course, sexual orientation, gender, and then income discrimination. And this is mainly for the rental properties. For the Section 8, you can't discriminate against people that are on Section 8. And I actually do have some Section 8 tenants myself. And so this is kind of the thing that you can say can't say in a listing, I should say, for rental property. And you probably want to translate that or take that for your business as well. And so you don't want to be someone who will discriminate in business, because again, if you've been in business as long as I have, you know that you can get a golden customer that maybe they're a realtor, you don't know they're a realtor, and they have 100 clients they're going to refer you to. This happens all the time, where you get this golden client and you just get so many referrals for them, but you may pass up that golden client because of one or many of these different things on this list here. Now that I got that out of the way, because I think it's really important, is the first thing I wanted to start with, the profanity and also discrimination. Now let me go into a little bit of communication tips here. I think keeping things short is important. You can talk yourself out of something. It's called talking yourself out of a deal in business. If you're in sales, you've heard this preached before. Like if you're a salesperson, don't say too much about the used car that you're trying to sell to the customer. You want to keep things to a minimal. You don't want to say like, yeah, and we had it in the parking lot and some rats chewed the wires and we fixed it though. It's no problem. They don't need to know that it was fixed. It's working. You can talk yourself out of a deal if you say too much. And that goes with selling equipment. If you're selling a variable speed pump, just don't be talking for 5 minutes about energy savings and quietness. Just keep it short and simple. And I found that people kind of respect these short and simple explanations. And you want to shorten everything possible so that it's clear. Like for instance, even my price increase notice. And if you want a copy of that, you can email me at david@swimmingpoollearning.com. It's pretty short and it's to the point. And also my service agreement is also one page and it has just about everything you need there, and you can alter it. So Word format, I can give you a copy of that as well. I do have a green pool waiver as well that I created, and it's also a one-page thing. And I think simple is better. So don't over talk something when you're talking to a customer. Just keep it simple and plain. I really like texting to a customer because I find it much easier than a phone call or face-to-face talk, because you can't over-talk when you're face-to-face or on the phone. But when you're texting, it's hard to over-talk because you're just typing something in and it's pretty short. So a good text example would be, "Hi, Mr. Jones. I noticed that your salt cell is flashing end of life. You don't need a new salt cell. There's not too many options, but the lowest price I can find for you from my supplier is $749. Would you want me to install this next month? And that's simple, easy. You don't go in all the details about, what happens if the pool doesn't have the salt cell functioning, all the different things about, why the price is so high and why you can't buy a generic cell. You probably could find a generic cell for some of the models, but I usually leave that out because the generic cells aren't really as good as the OEM most of the time. Sometimes they're actually pretty good, like the Circa Pool generic cells are really good for the Hayward Aquarite. But I don't go through all that because you're talking too much, and at that point you're talking yourself out of the sale. Keep it simple like that, and usually they're going to text back saying, "Oh man, that's too bad. Go ahead and do it." Something simple like that as well. I find that texting also those kind of big items goes over better than on the phone, because on the phone they can start talking back, and and they may even try to negotiate or talk you out of the new cell entirely and go to chlorine only. All these things can happen on a phone call, whereas a text message is cleaner, and that's unlikely to happen. They may say something like, "Well, what if I don't get a new cell?" Then you can say something like, "Well, then, of course, we'll have to go to chlorine, I'll have to buy tablets, and you no longer have a saltwater pool. And by the way, all this high salt content in the water does cause problems with balancing the pool. So I recommend a new salt cell because you have the saltwater generator, and it's a logical thing to do." And that's pretty easy and simple. And of course, you want to be polite about it, and you want to be empathetic. I hate to say this, but it is expensive, and this is what you're going to need. That might be something you put in the message as well. And it's something that you always want to be empathetic to the customer. They say the customer is always right. And I think in a lot of businesses, that's true. The customer is always right. If you go out somewhere, and you complain about something, they want to pacify you and make things right. Most businesses will do that for you. And it's something that I think is a way to kind of stay in business in a way, because if you have a lot of people that get upset with your company and you don't find ways to pacify that, you're not going to be in business a very long time. What that may look like in your service business is that you install a part. Let's say you put a pump basket in for an IntelliFlow pump, and the customer says, "Well, I found this for $14 on Amazon and you charged me $25. In a lot of cases, you can explain to them that you get OEM parts from the supplier. If they're face-to-face, I would explain a little bit more in detail. But if it's a simple text message and they say, you put a pump basket in, I usually will say to them, "Oh, sorry, my supplier only carries the original Pentair IntelliFlow basket, and that's why I put it in there. But if you want, I can take it out and you can order the one on Amazon and leave it by the equipment, and I'll definitely put it in for you. And that's not a problem at all. It's just that it's probably not an original Pentair basket, and the one I get from my supplier is an original part." Sometimes, in a lot of cases, they're going to be like, "That's fine, it's not a problem. I was just questioning why it was so much money." And they just want to know why it was more than the price on Amazon. They didn't really want you to swap it out in a lot of cases. And that's fine. I think if you explain it politely and nicely, they'll understand. And again, keep it short and don't go into details about how your supplier can't get generic parts or why generic parts are so bad. They're not as good as the original part. I mean, you may want to go that far if you need to, but shorter is better. And that's kind of clean, concise communication with the customer. And people appreciate that in business. I think I do that with my HVAC company or my plumber. He'll just tell me what I need. I don't go into a lot of back and forth discussion. If it's something that I need, I definitely need it. And I understand that because it's part of my business and I understand things break down. And so the customer should have the same mentality if you kind of train him, like, "Oh, I was there last week. I noticed that your motor is making a really loud noise. I'm almost certain that the bearings are going out. Here's how much it would cost to put in a new pump, or here's how much it would cost to replace it." And keep it pretty matter of fact. That's kind of like the natural thing that happens, and they understand that things don't last forever. Another thing also, and this is kind of on the same thing where if someone's like, "Hey, the pump basket you got me is a lot more than on Amazon," and you lose your temper. This is probably the number one thing you don't want to do in your business. And I've been guilty of doing this. I've lost my cool, I could say about 2 times out there that I can remember. And it's not something that I'm proud of or that I, would really say you should limit that to 2 times in your whole career. That's not too bad, but I have lost it, and it's not pretty, and it's bad business for sure. So if you do have the tendency to fly off the handle or have a short fuse, I would say maybe back off a little bit. If someone says something, don't say anything back or don't text back, and just cool off. I think having no answer is the best. I find that's the best way to diffuse everything. So I just don't say nothing back, or I'll just not text back for a day and kind of cool off. So important to remember those things. And another thing is you don't want to kind of, hit the hornet's nest and make it worse by sending back a jab or something that's sarcastic. That makes things a lot worse, and it's not proper business either. So I don't do that either, and I wouldn't recommend doing that. So try to keep your cool under all these situations. Sometimes it's difficult. I mean, I understand the customers can get, on your nerves, and I've been in situations where I kind of just had to step out of the backyard, go to my truck and be like, go in the cab, close the door, and start yelling. But these are things you have to avoid in business. And if you've ever been to like a small business, like a mom and pop restaurant, and you see like the owner arguing with a customer, it doesn't look good. It's a bad look, and it's not going to lead to anything but a bad review, in my opinion. You're going to probably get a bad review on Yelp, and the same thing will happen to your pool service if you start arguing with the customer. And of course, all of this goes with proper etiquette. I think having a uniform is really important, having a clean uniform, especially if you're doing bids or estimates. So I always carry a spare shirt in my truck. So I'm out there and I notice that my shirt got dirty, I'll have a spare shirt to put on if I run into people or doing a bid. I try to keep my truck as clean as possible because your truck is your office, and sometimes the customer will come over to your truck, to say something to you or stop you, ask a question. And if your truck looks really bad, if it looks like your garage, which my garage is, I organize it. I try to organize my garage every month or so. But if it looks terrible, you have cups from like the last 2 days of fast food in there, and you have trash all over the place. It's something that is kind of an image of yourself. I can tell you that from experience, it's hard to keep your truck really clean, at least for me, but I've really made a big effort the last 3 or 4 years to keep a really clean truck. And my wife even notices when she's in the truck. She's like, "Oh, you clean the truck out." So I try to keep that because I want to keep a good impression whenever someone comes up to my vehicle, which does happen on occasion. So that's one thing. Uniform, clean vehicle, and also how you address people is important. So, ma'am, sir, we don't do that a lot in California, but I think it's important. If they're a doctor, well, then call them doctor. They've earned that. They may not be a medical doctor, but they're a doctor in something else. I always use their proper title. And that's important too, how you address someone. It's just as important as what you say is the salutation with that person. So, these are all things that you should implement, or if you haven't implemented them, you should implement them with your employees and with yourself. It's just good business practice, and it's going to make your business really successful, and really it's going to make your business stand out. And if you're looking for other podcasts that I have, you can find those on my website, swimmingpoollearning.com. On the banner, click on the podcast icon. There'll be a drop-down menu of other podcasts there for you as well. And if you're interested in the coaching program that I offer, you can learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. This episode is brought to you by HASA, providing products that deliver clean, healthy water for every aspect of everyday life. The bottom feeder battery-powered vacuum system, portable, powerful, and only weighs 12 pounds. And Skimmer. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software. Podcast listeners can try Skimmer for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.